Great Lakes and Vice Chair of the Alliance. And I will send it on over to Ted.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Ted Hafner, and I am the Green Vision Coordinator for the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. And I will pass it to Amy.
Hi, I am Amy Dahl. I am with Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, and I will pass it to Jack.
Hey all, Jack Darren, Sierra Club, and I should be in the room in about 10 minutes.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Bader with Brookfield Zoo, and I'll pass it to Noreen.
Thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Noreen Rana. I'm a project manager at the Chicago Park District in the Department of Cultural and Natural Resources. And let's see, who can I pass it to? Is Becky Collins on here? Maybe not. Let's see.
Why don't we pass it to Patrick Thomas?
Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Thanks, Laura.
Hey everybody, Pat Thomas with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I am just running from a meeting in Stickney, so I wasn't able to be there with you in person today, but really interested in today's topic and glad to be with you. Thanks for having us.
Rebecca?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Rebecca Judd. I'm a conservation program officer with the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation. Good to see everyone. I will pass it off to Leslie Thompson. I don't think you've gone yet.
Hi, my name is follow here, Leslie Thompson. I'm with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, located at Purdue University Northwest. And I'm a little bit late coming in. Maybe Jennifer Bader.
Andrea?
Did I say wrong?
Jennifer went already. Well, how about,
Okay.
or Michelle?
I haven't gone. Michelle Zimmerman. I am with HR Green Engineering.
Thank you. Maria?
Hey everyone, I'm Maria Sadowski. I'm a communications consultant, and Chicago Wilderness is one of my clients.
Thank you. Finally, I think Andrea Garces? Perhaps I can't unmute.
Deborah just joined us as well.
Oh,
Deborah.
Deborah.
Hi, Deborah Walker Johnson. I am president of the Forest Preserve Foundation and on the steering council.
Thank you, everyone.
I think we do have everyone, and as others begin to join us here, we'll go ahead and get back and introduce you. So what I'd like to go next is to start approval of our agenda for today. I'm going to move this slide forward. We have several items, business, old business, and some new business, and then we're going to have a discussion, both on some work of our strategic plan and then on data centers, which seems to be the topic of the day and the month and the year has been with a lot. So I look forward to having those conversations. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today. By John, do I have a second?
I will second.
You got Emily. Thanks, Victoria. We'll get you next time. Any further discussion? All those in favor, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Agenda sits as approved. All right. Our first order of business, we've got approval of the last Executive Council meeting minutes, which was on May 6th. And our secretary, I'll let you lead that. Vince.
Comments or edits on the May 6, 2026 Executive Council meeting minutes, or I look for a motion.
Thank you, Jack. Second, Laura.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you, Secretary Moscow. Great job. All right, moving on to our treasurer's report. I'll turn over to our treasurer.
So in Session Lab, you'll see the last 3 months treasurer's reports for quarter 2 of fiscal year 2026. If you want to go to the next slide. The most recent statement of activity is on the slide here. High level, we continue to operate within our means, and our reserves are steady at over $530,000. As I said, these are our most recent statement in June. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a glance at our year-to-date from our approved budget. We are a little down in revenue with partnership dues. So if you are representing an organization that has not yet submitted their partnership dues, we have a number. Please check that for your organization and submit that as soon as you can. So we can tick that up. Membership dues are the bread and butter of CWA, as you all know. On the additional revenue side, we've gotten some first sponsorships in for Congress, so that continues to grow. We just started doing that outreach, and we're pleased to receive a $25,000 support level from Nagani Foundation, and continue to do that outreach. So if you also would like to sponsor Congress this year, please talk to Laura and get that squared away. On the expense side, we continued, as I said, to operate within our means. The one place where it looks like we're over, we're actually not, because that's a strategic planning cost and it moves to programming. So we're doing well. And with that, I would entertain a motion if there are no questions on our financials for quarter 2.
I will make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
And in the room at CMAP, you guys seem to be on mute for those of us online.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Apologies, everyone online. John had a question about how do you determine if your organization has not paid their dues, and you should reach out to Laura to confirm, and she can let you know and what level of dues you currently owe if you do. If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion now for approval. Great. We have one from Jack. Victoria, do you want a second since you originally motioned? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Everyone, yay and approval?
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
They've been received. Thank you, Treasurer Eiswig, and all the work that you do to prepare all the financials, as well as I have to give a shout out to our fiscal sponsor, the Friends of the Forest Preserve District, that help ensure that everything is shared with us and keeps us tracking, because it does take a community to work with all your volunteerism and all our partner organizations. So thank you. With that, we'd like to introduce and welcome several new members to the Alliance. Michelle, you're with us. Welcome with HR Green here. We're glad to have you with us as one of our new members partners. Planet Pros, Ryan Bogart, and I don't think Ryan's joined us today. We also have Chicago Climate Week, which is a project of the Chicago Climate Connect, and then GSG Consultants. So welcome, and we did a vote ahead of time, so we just need a motion to accept these into the Alliance here. So I'll entertain a motion to accept our new members.
Yes, Elizabeth, I would amend the motion to also recognize Faraday Elementary School.
Oh, did I miss that one? Thank you, Victoria. See, this is why you need the vice chair to keep track of what's going on in case you missed something. Thank you, Victoria. So yes, Faraday Elementary School. We have 5 new members. I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Emily, and second by Jack. All right, all those in favor, motion by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Welcome to our new members. We're glad to have you with us. All right, we'll move now into new business here. And the first item that we have, this is at this time of the year, we would normally be looking to request for nominations to be open for positions on the steering committee for the Alliance. The role of the steering committee is to help guide the organization, prepare for our executive council meetings, obviously to help Laura and team here in the day-to-day operations that take place. And this year, based on our transitioning, everyone that is currently on the steering committee that would be up for reappointment is either serving in their first term or eligible for reappointment. So the recommendation of the steering committee was to roll those individuals forward for another term and to reseat them. A really critical time for us as we're moving forward with our strategic planning, and again, appreciate keeping them connected. So with that, I would, someone if they would move, we're looking for Secretary Vince Mosca to return to that role. And then at-large members would be Jack Brunner, Deborah Walker-Johnson, Adam Osterman, and Jessica Rudnick, again, to reserve and come back in. When they were appointed, several just were last year, took that one-year term as an unfilled term, so they would be eligible for a 3-year term on the steering committee. So I will entertain a motion to accept that slate. Sergio, do I have a second? Second by Laura. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, motion by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. So that reappointments are approved. Yay, you guys are in. I wasn't going to let you go further, but I will plant the seed for succession planning, because as we're looking with everyone for engagement, obviously there's a lot of effort and time that goes by the steering committee that meets monthly in preparation and a lot of behind the scenes work. But if there is an interest in stepping forward in future years, particularly for next year, it's really important that we get you involved in some capacity and somehow, somewhere. There's plenty of areas to volunteer, and then that puts you in a good position to be for our next go round. And I keep saying this at every meeting, but I'm just going to have it till it sticks. I roll off as chair in 2028. We extended a couple years ago the role of the chair, and we extended it with another 3-year term, but it will sunset. And so in that preparation, we need individuals that are ready and willing to step up into this role. So really important that we get leaders and you express yourself, right? So commercial over. Okay, move on to the draft budget, and I will turn it over to our treasurer.
Yes, and before I do that, just thank you, Elizabeth, for extending your leadership term, and we're really grateful for all you do for Chicago Wilderness Alliance. So in front of you on the slide is a draft budget of our fiscal year 2027. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the newer things. You can see that we have our year-to-date actuals and fiscal year 25 actuals. Because every other year is either a celebration of nature or a Congress year, I usually look at fiscal year 25 as a marker for this year's budget. Things that we're looking at to kind of update in the budget are interest earned. As I reported earlier, we have $500,000 in reserves at this moment. So currently those are, we believe, sitting in a checking account, and how can we put that in a more high interest checking account or fund to make that money work for us. So that's something we're currently exploring on the revenue side. Additionally, we haven't really represented in-kind services that members provide at kind of above and beyond large scale for the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. So wanted to see that represented in the fiscal year budget for 2027 and be able to thank those members. Overall, we're keeping expenses fairly consistent to previous years. We are in a little bit of a squishy time with strategic planning, so we reserved some funding for programmatic expenses that we believe we'll need just based on how strategic planning is going, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And therefore are planning on pulling about $22,000 from reserve funds. That's if we can't fundraise to make up some of those expenses. So we wanted to be conservative in our estimates, but also leave room for some of the things that we'll need to do to shift the organization moving forward with strategic planning and be able to implement some of those goals. So I think that's it. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion, or we don't have to approve this yet.
Yeah,
This
we're
is
just gonna, it's a
discussion.
draft and then we'll be back in October, but
Yeah.
this is the time, if there's something as you look into it that you would like to see differently. I mean, particularly you see us investing, pulling from reserves to fund. That's a strategic decision that the executive, the steering committee looked at. We've been in that place before and we always end up better than that. But I think, again, Emily did a really nice job as we're in that, which we're going to talk about the strategic planning of where we're making some investments, where our direction is going forward. So any other concerns? The dues component, you touched upon that, of how we're looking, making sure that we're.
Yeah, we are investigating changes to membership dues, not necessarily the amount, but just how flexible membership dues structure is within the CWA. I don't have anything formal to present right now. I will have something more well thought out in October, but that probably wouldn't be any kind of membership dues discussion wouldn't be fully implemented until 2028. 2027 would be an introductory year moving into 2028. So more to come on that.
Perfect, thank you. Thoughts, feedback? Otherwise, Emily, too, will approve the budget, so we just need a motion. Do you want to move it as treasurer to approve the budget?
Okay, I thought we approved it in October, no?
We're going to accept the draft budget.
Okay, we're going to,
The draft budget is going to sit as stands, so we'll approve the draft budget.
okay. So I would take a motion to approve the draft budget.
Give a second. Second by Jack. All right, any
Second.
other discussion?
Yeah, any other?
All right, all those in favor, motion by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, draft budget, and obviously we'll be back in October with the final budget for everybody's review. All right, next order of business is the Congress that's coming up for our 30th anniversary. And so, again, thank you to those that have been meeting throughout to plan for this. And there's been a lot of activity, and there will continue to be activity between now and November, both at the staffing level, Laura, Cherie, and Maria. But then John and Victoria both have been leading the way. So who wants to, Laura, do you want to start off, or Cherie, do you want to go?
Yeah, can everyone hear me? Okay, so just as a reminder, Congress will be Friday, November 6th at the College of Lake County in Grayslake, Illinois. We are opening ticket sales on August 3rd, which is really soon, but we plan to be ready by then. You go ahead. Also this year, we are having an unprecedented number of field trips. We're having 5. And because of the generous support of the Negaunee Foundation, which Emily mentioned, these will be free this year. So that includes lunch. There are 3 all-day field trips, one that looks at seeds and seed banking at Rollins Prairie and also the Chicago Botanic Garden, one that visits various sites to showcase sustainable agriculture in Lake County. There will be one that goes to the Lake Plain Coastal Preserves. There's both a morning and an afternoon trip for that one, so those are half day, or less actually, about 3 hours each. And one that goes to Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge, visiting various sites there, talking about restoration and also the partnership that helped build that site. So again, tickets will also go on sale for that on August 3rd if you are interested in a field trip, because they are free. I suggest you sign up as early as possible because we'll get to the wait list pretty quickly, we expect, on those. Okay, go ahead. So for those of you who put in proposals or know people who put in proposals, thank you for that. We had a lot of proposals, about 3 times as many as we have slots at Congress, so very exciting. Deborah Walker Johnson led the charge to review all the proposals. Deborah, I know you're on the phone. Do you want to say anything, or should I just plow ahead?
No, you can keep going.
Okay, thanks. So there were 4 review teams this year, 17 reviewers from many different organizations, and if you served on one of those teams, thank you so much. We are in the process of making the final decisions, and for people who put in proposals, we are planning to get notifications out next week about acceptance. Also, we have identified the keynote speakers for this year, Dr. Nataka Moore and Jay Young. Nataka Moore is a professor at Adler University, and what's her other affiliation?
Mamangwe Collection.
Okay, Mamangwe Collective. And Jay Young of the American Indian Center in Chicago. So we're very excited to have them. They will bring an Indigenous perspective to Congress and start us off with a rousing welcome and introduction. There's also going to be a cultural event, a celebration event on the evening of November 5th. So the field trips are in the daytime on November 5th. The celebration event is in the evening, and then Congress is the next day. So a lot of stuff packed into those 2 days. That will be at the Greenbelt Cultural Center. Yeah, Elizabeth is leading the planning for that. So is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, so we're shaping that event. You'll get invitations out. We're hopeful that if those, I know with Congress, there's going to be one audience group and then an opportunity to expand and celebrate. And for those, because the Alliance represents regional, hopefully we'll be putting information out on lodging too. So if you have the opportunity and want to spend the evening on the night before, then you can attend the celebration and then be ready to go for Congress the next day. But it'll be a reception type format. We'll launch our strategic plan on that evening, and there'll be a lot that is in process of some surprises that we'll be sharing on the past 30 years. So we're looking at a time right now, I think, for the evening celebration, so that for those that are on the field trip, if in fact they want to also get to the event that evening, that we leave a little bit of a buffer so that that can happen. But understanding that, so 4:30, 5 o'clock, we're still trying to figure out what's that sweet spot, because some of the field trips get done a little bit earlier and the others in the afternoon. But we want to make it enough so in the event that you're not staying, you can drive back and then come back the next day as well. So, but yeah, we're looking for a good time for November. And there'll be sponsorship opportunities too.
And Elizabeth, can I ask for sharing of information about the reservations at local hotels for Congress?
Sure, I'd be happy to speak to that. We have a block of rooms reserved at Choice Inn that is the closest to the Lake County, College of Lake County. Information and registration information with the code is on our website. We will also update that with other places if that seems like it's getting full. But on our webpage, and I think Maria can drop a link into the chat, we have information about how to register for a room, both for the night before the field trip, for the night before Congress, and then I think there's a third night if people wanted to stay over the third night. So yes, thank you for asking that, Victoria. Yes. So thank you. I want to thank everyone who stepped forward as a sponsor of Congress. I know that you've probably already received a message from me in the mail over the last several weeks. But thank you to our generous sponsors, including the College of Lake County for being the host, the Nagani Foundation for funding our field trips, and I have posted those of you who have stepped forward so far, and we had a late-breaking Field Museum sponsorship today, so we're grateful for that, and look forward to expanding this list. So if your organization is interested, and actually Kathy, thank you as well, I see that you're here, please let me know. I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Any questions about Congress? Really excited. I will just give a reminder, I believe it is still open as well. There was communication that was sent out, and if I'm not, you guys can tell me, no, you closed it, but I believe we were trying to get the stories of personal stories and photos and areas of experiences over the last 30 years of the Alliance. So if you've got anything that you'd like to share, if you've not told your story, or you know of someone to pass it on that may have, you know, moved out of the area but it's still irrelevant to our origin story and what we've done over the last 30 years, we do want to hear from you, so we can pull that all together.
So a little more about that. We actually created a survey, because why not? We like surveys, that leads you through a list of questions about your thoughts and memories about the Alliance over 30 years. And we are particularly looking for people either who have a long history with the Alliance or who have played a leadership role. So we want to know about your experiences. We want to know what your memories and thoughts are about the origin of the Alliance, and then all along the way as well. And we will be using those for pull quotes, for things like posters, and what else? We're also looking for photos, especially if you have photos that stretch back a ways. They don't have to be the Alliance personnel or anything like that. It can be people at your organization in the field. And we're looking for B-roll, in case that's not enough, because we are doing a 30th anniversary video that tells the story of the Alliance over 30 years. And we would love some especially natural area footage, especially if it goes back a ways. So if you have any of that, or if you're interested in the online survey, we'll have to send you the link separately because I don't have it off the top of my head. But anything else you can talk to us about anytime.
Terrific, and thank you for those that, again, are helping in each of the different areas, because it does take, again, a community to pull this off, and if it goes like we were in Indiana, a great showing, we anticipate a very large turnout for this event as well. So very excited as the countdown begins. All right, for the discussion today, we've got several that we're going to go into, and this one, as we kind of alluded to, data centers and the future of the Chicago Wilderness region. There was a cafe that was last week. I don't know how many were on, but it was well attended. And so we didn't want to repeat what was last week, but we are going to have Amy Dahl from the Friends of the Illinois Nature Preserves. Couldn't be here in person, but she's going to help facilitate some of the conversations, as well as Victoria Wittig to help facilitate a conversation with us. And so that will be the real participatory conversation that will tap into the thoughts and talents that we have here around the room and that are at home as part of the Alliance. So I'll turn it over to you, Amy, and just let us know to advance the slides.
All right. Yeah, you can go ahead and pull up the first one. Thank you so much. I simply took the slideshow that Andrew Rain from Prairie Rivers Network and Tarek from the Nature Conservancy presented during the cafe last week, just so that for those of you that weren't able to be a part of that cafe, we could do a quick 5-minute lay of the land. But I will say that if you have not watched it and you have more questions, they did a really great job of laying out all of the issues and sort of setting the stage for where we are at least in Illinois in regards to the Power Act and some data center regulations. So I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because I think the goal today is to have more of a conversation around this. And so just really quickly, a data center is just a warehouse full of computers. And so I wanted to just set some definitions, but the inputs are computer chips, energy, water, and land, which is why we in the Chicago Wilderness and Conservation space care about it. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. And data centers have been around for a long time. Data centers are in spaces that hold computers, and they can be as simple as a closet in your office building to hundreds and hundreds of acres. And so the reason that these are an issue right now is because of what is happening with generative AI. They use a lot of computational power. They require a lot of data and a lot of data centers. So the issue that we are looking at now, and why data centers are all over the news and why we are hearing about them, are the hyperscalers, or these biggest data centers. There's no official definition. Some places are starting to define them by the amount of energy that they need to consume. But that's sort of, as we are sort of facing the discussion of people saying, well, we've always had data centers. Why is this different? This is why it's different. Illinois is looking at a tenfold increase in data centers that as measured by energy demand. So next slide. And it really, when we start to look at where they are located, it depends on the definition of data centers. So depending on how anybody sort of measures them, you might see a lot more on the map. So next slide. We'll talk a little bit about what's the issue. Why do we care about this? If we've always had industry, we've always had large buildings, we've had data centers. And the reason that we are all talking about it and that we care about it right now is that it's the unprecedented scale at which they are being built and installed, and the unprecedented use of primarily in energy consumption. And I think if you watch the slideshow or watch the webinar of Andrew and Tarek, they did a really good job of sort of laying out how we compare this. But a typical household uses 1 kilowatt of energy, and the largest data center in Cook County has a capacity of 158 megawatts. We can go to the next slide. So basically, one data center could consume and could need more than half of the energy currently being consumed by the entire city of Chicago, and that would simply be one data center. So that is the issue that a lot of the issue that we're all thinking about, and why we are concerned. Next slide. So again, we're just thinking about how many have been approved just in early 2026, but it's a third of Illinois' 2022 usage. So starting when they pulled the data, they're really looking at starting to look at before we started to see these hyperscale data centers, what was Illinois using in energy. Next slide. And so to put that, what does it take? And I think this is the other issue that that a lot of folks are thinking about, and why that we are concerned. Illinois is this has the potential to not only negate the impact of the Clean Jobs Coalition work and the work that we've been thinking about with clean energy, but to actually move us in the other direction. And so there's the Prairie State Generating Station, which is Illinois' largest coal plant and the largest source of air pollution, generates 1,600 megawatts of energy, and that wouldn't even cover the data center demand for the one that is proposed in Joliet. So that's sort of the scope and the scale that we're thinking about and concerned about. Next slide. We also think about, when we're just thinking about all the impacts of data center, we think a lot about energy and energy affordability, but we're also thinking about water usage, noise and air pollution, the land use impacts. Decommissioning is another impact. What happens with these huge, enormous places when this bubble bursts, when they are no longer needed, when the leader in whatever this AI space, data center space, when it's determined, what happens to all the unused buildings, unused land? And then also thinking about what this means for jobs. And construction jobs are all temporary jobs, but do these places bring jobs? So those are sort of the arguments and the discussions that are being had around data centers. Next slide. So again, water source, we want to think about, where do data centers get their water and where does the water go? So as we're thinking about in the Chicago Wilderness region, we're thinking about energy. We're also thinking about water and what is happening to it. Next slide. It's also, quite frankly, what makes Illinois pretty attractive to a lot of data centers is water. Data centers use a lot of water, particularly if they use evaporative cooling. There are a lot of the new data center proposals that are talking about closed loop systems. But I think it's also important to remember that they use water off-site if they are powered by fossil fuels, which are water cooled. So thinking about coal, gas, nuclear, those are some of the largest water users in Illinois. So if data centers are demanding more energy, they are demanding more water. Next slide. This is just a graphic thinking about how vulnerable is Illinois water, and where, and just paying attention to where we are on the drought map and things. This is an older picture, but I think it's important for us to think about not just making decisions based on 5 years of data about water and where we are in the drought, but what are the trends and where are things headed? So next slide. The other piece that they're thinking about are energy affordability. Data centers drive cost, and Andrew did a really great job in the webinar about talking about how energy costs are socialized across the grid. So basically, we all pay for the costs to build the infrastructure that serves the data center. That capacity, that transmission and distribution, those costs are all socialized across the grid. So next slide. Decommissioning, I left this slide in here because it's just that it is an issue that we all need to be thinking about with the data centers that are being built. And if they build all the data centers that are being proposed, what happens to the facilities, who owns them, and who's responsible for them if they are no longer used in 5 years or 10 years. Next slide. We hear a lot about jobs, but the majority of data center jobs are construction jobs, which are temporary by their nature, but is there a way to ensure that they're local? But the actual operations of a data center, the long-term permanent jobs are actually very few. Next slide. We continue to want to think about where are these facilities built and the continued air pollution issues, and there's a lot of issues to think about, especially when there is not consistent energy supplied, and these data centers need to use gas turbines and generators. What are the impacts of that and especially in our already environmentally justice burdened communities? Next slide. There's still the impact of noise pollution, and this is just a headline from a data center in Aurora, Illinois, and so it's the residents were quoted of saying it was like there was a helicopter on our roof. But these are continued. There are high frequency noise considerations, low frequency noise considerations, and how can these be buffered and mitigated, and can they, and what are the impacts on humans, also human health, but also the impacts on wildlife. And I think those are also issues that to be considered when we're thinking about the impacts of data centers. Next slide. Light pollution, and so I probably should have prefaced this, but I live in DeKalb County, and I can attest to the fact that data centers will change your night sky. And we have one already built, another one that was approved by City Council within the last year, and they create a sky glow. And I think the impacts to human health and the impacts to wildlife are also pieces to consider. Next slide. We're also want to consider, like, how are we using our land, and are we using or losing our prime farmland, the facility size, the hundreds and hundreds of acres that are consumed by these data centers are a piece to consider. And next slide. So the solutions to data centers, and I think this is where, we've laid out the impacts that need to be addressed. There's a need for action at all levels. We need county level, county and municipal, regional level policies. And at the state level, the Power Act was the act of state level regulation that was proposed. And I'll give a super high level of the Power Act, but I think for consideration for this group and discussion as well, we need to make sure that at a regional level, Chicago Wilderness regional level, and even within the counties within the Chicago Wilderness region, that we're thinking about. If we have statewide regulations, they won't address, statewide regulations will not address all of the considerations of data centers. And we need, I think the proposal would be, that I would have would be that the Chicago Wilderness Alliance would be helping to push for and encourage and support good regional and countywide regulations that can regulate the other issues created by data centers. So next slide. And so the Power Act was proposed. It did not pass in the state, in the legislature, Illinois State Legislature this year. It will be brought back during veto session in the fall. There was a commitment to begin negotiations of this bill, but it basically, it's broken down into protections around water, around communities, and around energy. So water, sort of establishing reporting and sustainable water use requirements, community, sort of critical protections, especially thinking about these communities, protecting communities, developing community benefits agreements, banning non-disclosure agreements, but making sure there's a transparent process when data centers are proposed in a community. And then energy requirements, establishing policies that protect Illinois' climate goals and ensure data centers and not the consumers are shouldering the costs. That's a super high level of the really, really long Power Act that has been proposed. And so we can go to the next slide. I think it was also important to note that the Power Act is popular, it's bipartisan, and the Power Act is supported in the polling that most Illinois voters support regulations on data centers. Next slide. Governor Pritzker did take action after the legislative session was over. So in June, after the legislature failed to pause or stop the tax incentives, Governor Pritzker paused them. And then in the next slide, you'll see he also outlined a policy framework. So he paused the data center tax credit. He called the General Assembly to take up the data centers in veto session. And the dates are there, November 17th through 19th and December 1st through the 3rd. And then he released the framework on data center policy, which is on the next slide. And so those are the sort of the framework that Governor Pritzker has also outlined, which is powerful in having the governor support sort of this framework for data center policy that is really outlined pretty well in the Power Act. So the next slide is sort of how we can all support the Power Act this fall. Come to the lobby days, call your legislature, write letters to the editor, send out action alerts. But I think, and I think that is really well laid out in the webinar from last week. But I think the next slide is sort of, these are the topics that I think it would be helpful to have some conversation around at this meeting. How does Chicago Wilderness, how does this community, what does the Alliance do around data centers? And I just wrote out 4 things that I hoped we could have some conversation around. How does CW support the Power Act? How do we build partnerships across state lines? This is not an Illinois issue. This is this is a big issue. But we know that Chicago Wilderness crosses state lines. How do we build partnerships across state lines? How do we support local regulations and best practices? And also, how do we build influence for conservation? When the Power Act was proposed and written and sort of put together, it was put together by the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, ICJC, And a lot of the language, a lot of the things that those in biodiversity conservation space may have been left out of some of that because we haven't necessarily been at the table. And so how do we make sure we're at the table when those conversations are happening? So with that, Victoria, I would turn it over to you to see if I know I went really fast, and I'm hoping to say that I saved enough time for good conversation. So.
Oh, Amy, I think you did. And I'm so thankful that you were available to elevate this for the Executive Council. The cafe last week was attended by more than 100 people. This is a live issue in pretty much every community across the country. We wanted to bring this to the attention of the Executive Council in order to give us space to start to think about what the role of the Chicago Wilderness Alliance might be as a 4-state partnership. We've got some examples from Illinois on the Power Act. What's happening in Michigan? What's happening in Wisconsin? What's happening in Indiana? What questions have been emerging amongst all of our alliance partner organizations? What are you guys currently working on? Is there a way for CWA to support that? Is there a way for you to lean into CWA to activate the entirety of the alliance? And, calling back on some of Amy's questions, what are those best practices? And then also, thinking about it in its entirety, what are the potential benefits for under-resourced rural and urban communities that make them more open to taking on these massive data centers? And conversely, what are the negative impacts for those same communities? And so with that, Amy and I would like to open the floor up for discussion and conversation around some of those questions, and hopefully we'll have a very engaged conversation around it.
Hi, in Lake County, we passed a temporary moratorium on data center applications, and we're also in the process of writing an ordinance to regulate them, but we're always looking for input on how to best evaluate some of the environmental
Lake
impact.
County
of
put a
these
moratorium on data centers.
Yes. And we're looking for more input on this, and we're looking to build some alliances as well, hoping to work with IEC. But we also need to know where some communities are standing on this. So it's always helpful to engage on this, to know how do we get this to leadership in Springfield. That's always the key. How do we build support downstate? It's a much different story when you get out of the Chicago area, because outside of the collar counties, they may want data centers just because of the revenue stream that they may create. But up here, we're more concerned in terms of what will happen in terms of the environmental impact. The technology will change. Will these buildings stand idle? What's the noise footprint? What's the water footprint? We're particularly blessed to have Lake Michigan water, and that's also a curse. But especially if the data center developers come in and say, "Oh, you're part of the fresh water grid. We'll site here." So my question is to everybody else is like, how do we build more of a coalition on this? I know I will be supporting putting this before our county legislative committee in a couple weeks, and I'm hoping we'll sign on to this so that we'll be ready when this comes up at the veto session, but we're always looking for support.
Thank you, John. I'm wondering if anyone else has a similar experience or any opportunities to engage on data center issues in their communities or organizations.
Hi. So what you may all know that CMAP has done water supply planning for several years. Maybe 2 years ago, we looked at our current Water Use Act of 1983, and we recognized that overall we have a high capacity well review process that is essentially broken. It is not funded. It is also rather myopic. It's looking at just conflicts with nearby wells versus the sustainable capacity of new withdrawals so it's not taking a systematic view. It's very site specific if it was in fact implemented. So I can share a document that we put together for recommendations for updating the Water Use Act, and I raise it because I think data centers are clearly high water users, but we have a lot of other industries that are high water users as well, and our current groundwater governance is just not set up for industries that are making these types of withdrawals. The other point, Amy, that you mentioned about the toll on the grid, I think is an important one, and I'm not sure if the Power Act deals with this, but it'd be nice if there were some components that focused the data center use on off-peak times. So our grid is set up for a peak day, in August at the hottest day, at the most amount of energy, but typically it runs at 50 to 60% of its total capacity. So if we focus the data center use in those off-peak times, we could potentially be lowering the cost of electricity overall. It's when the data centers are at the peak times that we really face big issues. So just another more of a management of their use in the system suggestion.
Amy, did you want to respond to that?
I have no information. I am not the energy use expert
Sure.
at all. But I do know that there was some conversation about how are the Power Act language around energy use and energy consumption is pretty robust, but I was not a part of any of the development of that. But I'll pass that along to Andrew and maybe get an answer to that question as well. But I think your points are very fair about the groundwater planning, and that is something that in DeKalb County is very much a part of the conversation. And I think I come to the power, like this conversation, wearing two hats. One as a local person working on how we're dealing with this in DeKalb County where I live, but also this has an impact from a conservation advocacy space as well. So, and I know we are thinking about it in DeKalb about the water usage. And I see Rebecca has her hand raised.
Yeah, Amy, that's a good segue to my point, and thank you for all of this information. I think maybe one kind of easier, kind of low hanging option to kind of engage on this is maybe working with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition to just get a sense as to whether there is still an opportunity to kind of elevate the land use impacts. I think it's notable that the way that the Policy Act is currently drafted, that it's kind of centered around those three pillars of water, community, energy, and it's missing. It's land. So I think that's maybe something that maybe Chicago Wilderness should explore. I know that there are members of Chicago Wilderness that I think do participate or sometimes sit on some of those Clean Job Coalition meetings. So maybe that's just something that, that we could unpack further. And it also just brings to mind that there are certainly a number of other policy initiatives and opportunities that I think Chicago Wilderness should consider, similarly thinking through about how best to engage on. Like I know, for example, the state wetlands protection bill, which I think will be on its fourth year of attempt next year. And from what I've heard, like folks are hoping that that there are some real opportunities for passage. And so I do think something like that, which more clearly aligns with the land conservation, biodiversity, priorities of CWA, that something like that also should probably warrant like similar exploration of how best to engage on.
Thank you, Rebecca. Those were really wonderful points and something that CWA certainly will benefit from digging into more deeply. Laura, I see your hand is raised.
I'm just calling Jack. Darren has had his hand raised here quietly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, Jack from Sierra Club. Super excited this conversation is happening here. And so the Clean Jobs Coalition, for those of you who aren't a part of it, we really started in, I think about 12 years ago, strictly around our 100% clean energy goals for Illinois. And we got that done with the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act 2021. And then since then, the energy sphere has just kind of pulled us in all these different directions. And here now data centers have us looking at all these different impacts. I will say that, so just first of all, in terms of the process where we're at, we were disappointed to see no legislative action on this year, at least this spring. But we think that is slowly changing. There was a meeting yesterday between the legislative leaders and the governor's office about the framework for negotiations, that they're aiming to have negotiations over the next quarter, basically, so something could be ready to move in the fall veto session in November. And the coalition is preparing, like we've had the Power Act out there for several months. We've got a lot of feedback to it. We've done a lot of own thinking on our own ideas. We are totally in the process of refreshing those. And so I think there could be a window, fairly short, but not like immediate, but over the next, I would say 6 to 8 weeks to think about other things that we can be proposing together. The water provisions of the Power Act could be a little bit of a model from this, right? Because the coalition never really spoken to water issues before this proposal. So what we did there is we pulled together kind of like a dotted line group of Clean Jobs Coalition members and water-focused organizations to kind of in a breakout group write the water titles of the act. And there's no reason other than time, which again, when there is some, where we couldn't do something similar, I think, on land and other conservation impacts. There probably will be some ceiling on how many and how bold of brand new ideas we can bring to the table, but ours is the only proposal out there. We know it's not going to become enacted in law in exactly the version that we wrote it. So there's going to be a lot of give and take on these issues over at least the next 90 days. So I think there absolutely is an opportunity to keep these conversations going.
Thank you, Jack. I see that both Laura and Amy and then Elizabeth have their hands raised, all three.
Sorry, mine just didn't go down. Go ahead.
Sergio.
Sergio.
First and Sergio too.
I could really quickly, I just wanted to respond to what Jack said about there is a group, and if folks are interested in connecting more with that, and maybe that is part of what comes out of today, but in the spring, sort of with Andrew and a group of conservation policy folks, there have been folks thinking about the conservation issues around data centers and how and where those fit into the Power Act. And so if folks are interested in continuing to be a part of that conversation, there is a group. We did have a couple of meetings. I presented to one of the ICJC groups about some of the conservation issues around data centers back in the spring. So I think there's a way that conversation has already started and could use more voices, and if there are folks that want to connect.
Thank you, Amy. And just before we move into some questions from folks in the room, and Elizabeth, I see your hand is raised as well. I'm just curious if this could be a curated CWA Cafe series that kind of unpacks this in more detail and brings more voices to the table. Is that something that seems possible.
I think it's possible, yeah.
Okay, more on that soon. I'm gonna ask for folks in the room to help facilitate the hands raised there. Elizabeth, can you help with that?
I sure can. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes, I just had a couple of thoughts. I do appreciate from what Lake County, Illinois has done on the moratorium. Is there a sense that there's a similar that's taking place with the other Colorado counties as well? Or is that just isolated to Lake County to take that stance, first one out of the gate?
I haven't really seen anything yet. And since we're writing an ordinance, it's kind of a pause to give us a break to write the ordinance and ask the right questions and do some research. So that has to kind of filter through our system a little bit. And the next step is for us to determine if we want to endorse the Power Act as a county. That'll come up pretty soon.
Because that would be good information, obviously, from the policy, if they're having similar conversations around with those elected bodies. I know that in McHenry County, obviously we've had battery plants, we've had solar array fields coming in, and in contradiction to which, Sergio, you were at a meeting that we were at, ultimately, and trying to do the right thing by land use. McHenry County, we're dependent upon our groundwater, but ultimately, you want to support the clean energy, but yet you're in conflict of placement without having the local control to be able to do that. Also, I think a lot of the corporate entities that are in the space of data centers, solar field, they're looking at ways on their ESG goals to try to give towards conservation in other areas. And so I'm just curious of projects where there is some of that going on as well, not to kind of, pay it forward, but in essence, these things are happening. They're going to happen unless, there's been discussion that they're going up in the sky and then they won't be on the land. And, I don't know. But ultimately, how do we navigate, these things that there's value, but yet preserving what's most important in those conservation areas that we need to do. So I guess that's just a lot of questions. But for us to be thinking of how we navigate that as an alliance, and we're all coming from different areas, right?
Sergio, did you want to go next?
Yeah, just echoing some of Jack's comments. Myself and some of IEC's other staff are at the Aspen conference. That's in the Sears Tower, and Governor Pritzker was speaking yesterday morning and reaffirmed his support of the Power Act and how he wants to see it pass in the next legislative session. I don't think he didn't specify whether he meant the veto session in the fall or whether it's the next spring legislative session. But it's great that again he's vocally supporting the Power Act and the work that's being done behind it. He did recently sign an AI safety measures bill where lots of legislators who are kind of celebrating him passing this bill are not co-sponsors of the Power Act. So I know there's an active push to get those legislators who are very in support of it's Senate Bill 315, Jack, right? Would you know?
513.
But I know the ICJC, the coalition is looking to target those legislators that are kind of benefiting from this bill passing, but have not taken that step to co-sponsor the Power Act itself. And they've been sharing some comments that organizations and individuals can use when reaching out to their legislators that I think might be helpful when doing that outreach. And I can kind of share that as well.
Thank you, Sergio. Anyone else? Emily?
I'm just trying to get clarity on timeline, Jack. So if we wanted to get involved in some sort of working group for this to build out a land use strategy or create some recommendations, is that like a this summer thing, knowing that they might go in veto? Like how quickly should we start working together to formulate something for the coalition to then adopt? Because we're not Open Lands is not necessarily part of the coalition.
Yeah, I think we should. And Amy, I didn't know about those conversations this spring, so that's really good to hear about. So it sounds like there's already at least the beginnings of a table around this. So if someone's got capacity to convene that and make it known to the coalition for folks to jump in, I think that really would be good to do this summer.
Okay. And it sounds like, Amy, it's Tarek that we should reach out to.
Yeah, Tarek, Andrew, me, Jim Johansson, and a few others have had several calls around sort of the land use issues around it. And Andrew and Tarek are kind of the liaisons back with ICJC. So yeah, so Emily, we can touch base, and I can, maybe you and Laura and I can figure out a time to maybe pull in others that haven't been part of the conversations yet.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Great discussion. Great presentation. We're going to go still around a few more minutes here. Jack?
Yeah, thanks. A couple of things have going through my head in terms of, a lot of it has to do with just the uncertainty, right, of the impacts of these data centers. I mean, some other states have gone toward a statewide moratorium, right? I think New York in particular.
Yeah.
Any of the Chicago Wilderness Regional states considering that? Does anybody know about that?
Jack, thank you. Thank you for posing that question. And I wanted to raise for everyone's awareness a link that I dropped in the chat for Northwest Indiana Data Facts that's being hosted by the Northwest Indiana Forum, which is a supportive entity for economic development in Northwest Indiana. They have put together a very sophisticated website that addresses myths and facts, resources, perspectives, press, two very large projects that are already approved in Northwest Indiana, and more. And so I think it would be of value for Alliance members to dig into that and understand how perspectives differ across state lines, and to perhaps try to identify opportunities for policy models like the Power Act to potentially make their way into states like Indiana. But I implore all of you to please look at that website and bring that into the conversation that you're having when you're talking about Illinois, to try to bring that conversation to a level that represents the 4-state Chicago Wilderness Alliance.
Yeah, and then I guess similarly, Victoria, based on what John was saying, it's going on in Lake County. I'm wondering too if that moratorium template could be of use to other counties as well, and is there a way that that could be shared by you or through Chicago Wilderness, or at least share the progress on that, so that other counties don't have to reinvent the wheel?
I love simple answers. The answer is a profound yes, because we're creating it as a model ordinance. So we're assuming that every small municipality can't write this stuff from scratch. So we're trying to build in all the things that they need to ask to have proper disclosure, to go into granular detail about wetlands and energy use and water use. So that's hopefully going to be done before the end of the year. And by that time, hopefully the Power Act will be in place, so it would ideally complement what the state will do. So yeah, that's our intention. Thank you.
That's outstanding, and maybe that's a way, something we could do is sort of help promote that or make that available to other members. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jack. I just wanted to add into that. That would be ideal. If you understand the lay of the land in Northwest Indiana, Lake County and LaPorte County are on board with data centers. Porter County is not. And they have been fighting against rezoning every step of the way. So I think there are some opportunities there. And I apologize for jumping in again.
No, well, that kind of answers the question too about a potential statewide moratorium there, if there's that discrepancy between the counties. And then I guess the last thing I thought of from a Chicago Wilderness Alliance standpoint, talking about the uncertainty of impacts and things like that, we have a lot of research-focused institutions, agencies, things like that. I don't know if that's something that those groups could, start working toward conducting research to determine the impacts on wildlife of some of the data centers that could then be used by others that are trying to, whether it's a moratorium or passing something like the Power Act, can use to sort of justify some of those actions. So I'll leave it at that.
Great suggestions. Laura.
See if I can do this correctly this time. To build on what you were just saying, my thoughts are, one, what science is still needed? What do we not know that we want to have in our back pockets as justification for or against data centers? Who's doing that research? Is there already a hub of folks that are working on those questions and finding the answers? And then secondly, can we identify, at least in the Chicagoland region, in the Wilderness Alliance region, which counties are being most pressured? It sounds like Northwest Indiana for sure. Where on the Illinois side is there kind of the most pressure? And just to kind of, and then maybe have a meeting with those county folks, those folks that are seeing the most pressure, to be able to all get on the same side, or at least find some solidarity and support with each other.
Great suggestions. Love that, love that. We're capturing Laura's writing copious notes here and to come back. Any other thoughts on this? Hands up. Okay, who has a hand up here online?
It looks like you do, but
I do. I'm put mine down. How do you turn it off? Okay.
It has to go. I don't know why that setting is not working.
All right.
Chair.
Well, thank you all.
There's more.
There's more. There's more. I'm just curious, how much more time do we have on the agenda for this item?
I've been adjusting as we've been going here, so I've got us. We're good. We'll give it one more minute or so, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I can be brief.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Jared Patton, City of Chicago. City of Chicago is different than many other parts of Chicagoland, but this is a topic that we've been exploring quite a bit recently. We just wrapped up a 1.5 year long internal working group process. We created a report on data centers, and we ended up with 3 main recommendations, which were to update our zoning standards, to develop an environmental permitting program that would really focus on the local environmental impacts of data centers, mostly noise and air pollution, and then also to require energy and water use reporting. The Power Act is great. Love the Power Act. One thing to flag is that the Power Act is focused specifically on hyperscale data centers. I believe the current threshold is 50 megawatts. You're not going to build an AI training data center smaller than that, but you can build an AI inference data center or a cloud computing data center or data storage center. There are a lot of other data centers that can be under that threshold. We have many of those here in Chicago. So the Power Act is needed. It's important. And also it should be done in parallel with local action as well. We recommend to ourselves to require reporting for energy and water. We also have a note that others in the Great Lakes watershed should do the same. I think water is a place in particular where there's not a lot of transparency, and it creates this really weird bifurcation where, depending on who you talk to, it's either a crisis or it's not even an issue worth talking about. And it's hard to push back on both groups because we don't have the data. So I think water reporting is a really key place here too. Last thing that I'll say, which is maybe a little bit more energy wonky and nerdy, in terms of places where there's coalitions happening, the City of Chicago is part of a coalition, the PJM Cities and Communities Coalition. It's a group of mostly cities, counties, some MPOs from across the PJM region, which is the multi-state grid operator, where we discuss issues related to grid management, and the presentation capacity prices were briefly mentioned. If you want to get involved with that, that's a really good group that has an increasing role in PJM work, but not yet an official one. So let me know if you're interested in that.
Excellent. Terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, please continue to share those resources. And I think by having a repository where we can have CWA partners be able to pull from, I think is going to be helpful as we navigate, and maybe some coordinated efforts here too. So Appreciate the discussion. Thank you, Amy, for leading, and Victoria as well, and leading the discussion for today, and for everyone's participation. You got one too?
Quick question.
Okay,
please.
one more.
At our last steering committee meeting, it was mentioned that there might be some kind of, I want to use the word slush fund, because that's kind of a dirty words these days, and it should be, that data centers might give money for local stewardship projects or something like that. I failed in finding anything. Reached out to a colleague of mine, and they answered back that's close to Microsoft money in Pleasant Prairie or Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, and they told me to use Chat GPT to find out the answer, which I thought was kind of funny. So I don't know if that's a real thing or what it's called, because I'd like to do some research to figure out if there's a way to tap into that.
Yes, Vince.
There we go. Thank you.
It is a real thing. For example, Amazon Web Services is offering millions of dollars to partners that can offset their water use through volumetric water use benefits. And you could spend 10 years doing research, getting a PhD and more, trying to figure out how to do that calculation. But there are partners in Northwest Indiana that are in the process of receiving a lot of money to do exactly that, to offset the water use impacts of specifically Amazon Web Services. And my understanding is that that is analogous for every other large data center going in from all of the other entities, Microsoft, Google, and the rest.
And that was kind of my question initially that I was posing with how they're proposing, a lot of open space agencies when we were beginning early days of wetland mitigation, of course, right? It's like, don't go in that space, we're not going to touch it. And then you're like, well, this money, it's going to go in a different watershed. So the impact is happening locally. Let's go ahead and take that money and then put it to good use and then put it in the right positioning. So we're kind of in this push and pull type environment, and I was just curious on a positioning, because this is one of those polarizing conversations. Do you take the money? We have partners that are taking the funding and doing good work with it and placing it to do some large impact, but yet then your messaging and how, again, it's one of those areas that, how do we navigate? So. And it goes back to, Indiana, it sounds like there's counties that are at different places and conservation organizations. In Illinois, we're still new with the Power Act. So again, I think it's going to be a continued conversation, and it's really good that we're having it here. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to keep us moving here to the next conversation that we have, and that is on strategic planning. Really, this is more of an update that we want to be providing everybody. And if you want to advance the slides, Maria, I don't know if you're still there doing that. I can pull that back up, or Laura. So as everyone knows, we have brought on Global Conservation Solutions. They were with us in May to provide an update to everyone. They've been working, the group that's been tasked to taking this on is the steering committee. And we've been trying to be, continuing to be transparent in the process. We had an updated first initial review to get feedback from the partners, which they did take that in, and it was pretty much in alignment with where the steering committee was headed. So that was positive. Again, as we moved a little bit further to formulate, we also then wanted to go back out, and I know these slides are very difficult here to see of where we're at, but they're taking a really good approach and challenging us as we're thinking as we go forward, and going back and kind of aligning where the alliance has been over the last 30 years. We can look at the successes of how we originated and how we came together, and now with the alliance, a lot has happened, a lot of successes over that 30-year time period, and so many organizations have started up. Just as in a corporate environment, and what we do is we see something great happening someplace else and somebody imitates it and they replicate it, and then you've diluted kind of, and then everybody's doing the same thing. So what is our niche? What are we going to be focused on as an alliance to have the most impact? That's why we're getting here. We had a good discussion today, is working on some of those pieces, part of what we do. So they're taking us through that process. Right now, we are looking, we've entertained, because we know that the work to be done is really critical, that what they initially placed in their proposal, we were not going to be able to get that delivered to have and get more voices into the space that we need to do for the best results. So the executive committee did advance to do some additional workshops with Global Conservation Solutions, and so that process is going on. We will continue to be meeting between now and Congress, and then being able to come back. Our goal is in October with more information, and as we get information, because between this meeting and October, a lot can happen between them. But I think we're focused now, and again, I'm trying to get here on this sheet so we can kind of look at the green visioning areas where, and this is so small, can you go forward on the one there at the bottom there? I don't know if there's any way to blow that up. There's not. Let me see if I can get another slide so I can read those of what we are.
Here we go. I can't make it.
I can't read them either. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the long-range goals right now, what we're testing with everyone is their long-term outcomes, and where we're focused right now are 4 goals with a 2050 horizon outlook. And what is remaining open is, the level of ambition that we're going to have to pursue this, and it's going to be critical as these things, as we set these goals forward, that we get the buy-in and the support for this new direction from all of our partners, because it's not one agency or one organization that can lead it, or one state. It's got to be representative of us all. So right now we've got conserve, restore, steward, and access. Those are the 4 pillars. Under the conserve, we've got by 2050, the Chicago Wilderness Alliance has facilitated the designation of at least X acres of protected and conserved areas within the Southern Lake Michigan region. So that's one we haven't filled in what that metric would look like. Under the restore, by 2050, the Chicago Wilderness Alliance has supported ecological restoration of at least X acres within the Southern Lake Michigan region. Under steward, by 2050, the Chicago Wilderness Alliance has supported the sustained stewardship of at least X acres within the Southern Lake Michigan region. And then the last one is access. By 2050, the Chicago Wilderness Alliance has facilitated improved access to nature within the Southern Lake Michigan region, such that X% of residents are within a 30-minute walk of an accessible open space. So those are the 4 areas. Obviously, once those get set, the testing that's coming back from the survey, have we hit the mark? Do we need to modify? And then getting into the specific actions or tactics that'll go associated with those. So with that, anyone else from the steering committee or anyone else that's participated in the survey, anything that you would like to share with where we're headed thus far?
I think I'll just share that participating in some of the conversations, what I really, really appreciate about these goals is it feels like a membership goal. It's not saying that CWA is doing this work or taking credit for the work we all do. It's saying we as an alliance are moving towards this in a unified way, and we'll have a very specific, tangible, SMART goal to account for it. And I think in comparison to the Green Vision that they weren't as SMART goals, this feels like we'd be better capable to track this as an alliance and clearly work together towards stewardship, restoration, land protection, and access. So I'm pleased with the clarity that is coming out of this process, but want to hear from others as well.
Thank you, Emily.
I would just build on that and say, I think that the way that these 4 goals are set up, that any of our partners can find where they fit into these goals. And it would be interesting to see, or at least to have a conversation around, are there any partners that don't feel they're represented in these goals? Can folks look at these and say, oh yeah, we can help contribute to that one, we can help contribute to that one, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be curious if anybody feels differently.
Thank you, Laura. I know we've got representation here from a lot of the steering committee members that are more intimately close with the process, but really interested for the others that are here in your first blush and looking at the direction. Not to put you on the spot, Laura.
I'm curious about the distribution of the acreage goals and whether the Chicago Wilderness would want to be more specific. We don't want all the acres in one quadrant of the southern Michigan region, right? So just wondering about that aspect. And
right
how
now
that
they're
came
very
up
macro. They're not any place.
Yeah, and I mean maybe the axis measurement gets to that, right? But just curious.
Great. No, those are great pieces for us to take back as we pull some of those tactical layers to what that means. And I think the GVI, again, great intent, really trying to align with some legislation that the Alliance tried to be everything to get everybody represented in those spaces, and it diluted. And so now I think really the key, what we've learned from that is we need to focus. We need to, if it's going to be strategic, we need to do, let's get the target and let's hit it and focus on that. So I think that's what we're really working. And they're challenging us the way we're thinking, which I love from the consultant. They're doing a really good job. And so they'll be back again with us in October. Yeah. Anything else from those that are home and online? See any hands? Okay, hearing none. More to come. Let's see here. We'll turn it over to Ted on the Green Vision. And Cap'n.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Elizabeth. My report is going to be pretty short and sweet for a couple of reasons. First, it's summer, but second, it's business as usual with sort of a huge asterisk, and that asterisk is just what we were talking about in the strategic plan. We had a good goal group meeting with all the leads in June. We went over the strategic plan with them, and they're aware of sort of where we stand or where we stood at that point. Obviously, things have progressed, but we've been updating them routinely. And so what's interesting to me is we have 8 goal teams right now, and the draft of 4 different initiatives to move forward with. And so we're starting to think about how that might impact the goal teams. Do we pivot to place the goal teams with the new initiatives and goals? Do we have some subcommittees because ag and climate and water and the GIS hub don't exactly fit into those new goals nicely? So they know that this is coming up on the horizon. They've seen the reframed goals. And that's what we're sort of pausing on right now because this needs more baking, as Elizabeth and others indicated. But that said, we are moving forward. We're having meetings. We have a water meeting next week. We just had an ag meeting last week. We had a climate meeting a couple weeks ago. And so we're moving forward as best we can with this big sort of question mark on the horizon. So I think the real work is still to come once we get more clarity. But right now we're sort of updating and proceeding with caution as necessary. My other updates are let's see, where did I put this tab? We have been reached out to in January. We applied to a bunch of grants, some of which were successful, some of which were not. One of which was sort of hanging over our head was this Tier 2 TCGIM, which I think is the Greater Lake Michigan Initiative. they came back to us with hey, rethink this a little bit and resubmit. So we did that over the last 2 or 3 weeks and successfully met our Wednesday deadline to resubmit that grant and should hopefully hear soon. The main reason that they kicked that back to us was because they wanted a shortened timeline for us. We originally applied for 2 years under their direction as a grant, but they wanted us to shorten it to a 1-year working activity and give a little bit more information. So for CAPN, that's where we stand right now with that. And we're looking forward to implementation and teasing out some of the data that we did not get from we still have a couple holes from the co-design team. I think that's about it for my presentation today, but I will take any questions that anybody has.
Ted, can you give a brief summary of what that grant would entail?
Yes. So when we applied for it in January, we thought it would be sort of one thing based on the pace and scale that we were on with CAPN. And the way that CAPN rolled out, it's sort of switched scope a little bit. We were thinking it would be mostly planning in the original state because we still had a lot of planning ahead of us at that point. But as we wrap up our planning, we're really focusing on holes. We have a huge spreadsheet that sort of tracks what CWA can do, what our partners can do, what municipalities and agencies can do, and what everybody else can do. And while we have a lot of that spreadsheet filled out, we do have some holes in it just because of representation issues from some of those constituencies. So it will be to further complete that work, but then also help us roll out CAPN. And the scope and the activities that will go with that, sort of socializing, dog and pony shows, and really connecting on a deeper level with partners that can help us with this. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thanks, Ted.
I wanted to add that it's the Thriving Communities Grant.
Thank you.
Did you advance the slides? Can you get through? Did everybody see these?
These are these, did you update these, Ted?
I did not.
Yeah, these are,
Those are-
yeah, these are from
All
our
right,
past.
did you have anything else on CAPN or anything else with your?
I do not. Thank you.
I didn't. Here. All right, Laura. Okay, you're up next.
All right, I wanted to go back to the agenda to see what I was going to update on. And so we had a very busy couple of months. The Green Teacher Network was just held in June, on June 24th. And many of our partners here in the room were instrumental in planning that event. And there were about 125 participants at that event. And why we were engaged in this is that it is an opportunity for our partner organizations to be able to share their resources and the work that they do with Chicago Public Schools teachers and others. And so now that has passed, those resources are available to those teachers and they can take it back to their students in the classrooms and their schools. So that has passed. We have been moving towards an August native-led climate research. Green Teacher Gathering. A native-led climate knowledge exchange. It will be held on August 15th at the Hillendale Preserve with the Citizens for Conservation. But the group that has been meeting to plan the Native-led Climate Summit, this is the third extension in the work that they're doing. And the goal of this one is to bring Native American and non-Native stewards, growers, and academics together to talk about climate issues impacting the urban indigenous communities and how we can work together. So please save the date. If you have anyone that is interested in attending this, the registration information is both here on the slide. There's a QR code, but there is also information on our calendar, and you can find out more. And finally, we are really pleased to announce that we have launched our new landing page. Our new website has been remodeled. This is actually an old slide, but I'm going to go ahead and, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go to our new page. Do I stop sharing for a minute or not? But we can drop a link in the chat, and I hope and invite you to check that out. Our next steps, we are very much going back through all of our pages. The look and feel of the site has been updated and refreshed, but we are going back through and using the templates that were provided to us to create new landing pages for the Congress site, for our cafes, and for our resources. So please do continue to check that out. We will do a live launch when that's announced. But what you see here is actually a stage site, and I will go ahead and drop the link in the chat for the new site, and you can check it out.
And I want to thank Laura and Maria and all the members and partners that have helped to get this to a place where we can have this. It's long overdue for a facelift, and hopefully it will navigate more to Resonate. And I think, as you see, as the site's been built, there is an opportunity that has a partner side and then a forward face. So as we go through the strategic planning and we determine kind of where our focus and audience, there are things that probably need to be on different sides of that will allow us to be able to do that as well. So more to come, but I think it's really important. I know a lot of work goes into doing that. So thank you for all your work.
Big thanks to Maria Sadowski, who is in the middle of this right now, and we couldn't do it without you, Maria.
Yeah. So thank you, Maria. Great with the copy and making sure that too from our partner members on photography, and just so we can do attributions. And I know we've got a lot of great stuff across the region that we can showcase. So if you've got something, or if you're looking for something, Maria, that we don't have yet, I think we just need to do a call out and get that for us. All right, we're wrapping close to the end here. Any partner announcements from anyone that you'd like to share with the group?
I have one. Open Lands has created an exhibit with Chicago Architecture Center and in partnership with Studio Gang called Flyaway City and Chicago's Living Habitat. That's at Chicago Architecture Center right now. It's great. It really promotes bird-friendly design, has lots of partners engaged, including the Field Museum and others. So just encourage you all to attend. And at that exhibit, there's a postcard. If you're a City of Chicago resident, you can send to your alder to advocate for bird-friendly window design, which we're hoping to get passed in City Council this year. It's currently out of rules, which is a huge thing. And next goes to zoning. So.
Thank you, Emily. Anyone else? Jack.
About 2 paragraphs of the 10,000 or 1,000 page transit legislation that became effective in June is called the Transit to Trails Act, and it's something that asks IDOT to set up a new program for grants to either transit agencies or outdoor service providers or site owners to better connect transit routes to outdoor recreation. It's not funded yet, so we're going to be working with IDOT to get them to set up the program. So once we can find funding for it, and I think a key part of that is going to be showing demand for it. So particularly people that operate sites or programs that think that you could get more people outside with better transit service. I'd love to hear about the examples that we could be citing about where this could be put into use.
That would be a great idea if we want to try to feature ways that people are using it. If we want to try to focus on that either through our newsletter or through cafes or something like that, we could kind of spotlight it. So, let me know.
I would just say Big Marsh, Beaubien area.
And I would just say that lines up with the strategic planning and one of our goals. And Darren, we need you to help us realize that. Thank you for sharing.
Any other announcements? Yes.
You had mentioned about the windows for the birds, and so many new buildings in the last 10 years are all glass. Is there anything about a retrofitting at all, or is this strictly still? I know everybody's been trying to get something for the new building. Is this, but nothing is going to be done for probably retrofitting, right?
I don't know if the ordinance talks about retrofitting. I think it is for new development, but the exhibit does encourage and promote ways that buildings can retrofit and add bird-safe glass in very cheap and less cheap ways moving forward. And it kind of demystifies, I think a lot of developers and building owners think that you have to have bird-safe glass the entire way up. This talks about that it's really, the tree line and a little bit above that needs to be done. So some good information that is part of this exhibit for existing building owners.
All right, because I just think of the flyway, right, that I think they're higher than tree line, maybe during the migration, I would assume. I don't know. I'm not, an expert in that or not.
Yeah. Nor am I. I don't know if Aaron or anyone, John, do you want to speak to that? Okay.
I was just going to jump in and say, I believe that the ordinance doesn't cover retrofits, and I think that's a hope for down the road, but getting new construction is a step in the right direction. So, but again, yeah, pointing to a lot of great information at the exhibit as well. So.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go to that exhibit.
Yes, Beth.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight one of our Force of Nature winners, Claudia Galena Sanchez, is going to be leading a climate tour this Friday from 10 to 12. It'll start right in front of the Mexican Museum, and it'll actually show some of the gardens that have been planted in front of the elementary school. It's also going to include, if you haven't seen it yet, the So Chicago exhibit, which is at the Mexican Museum, and it highlights what's happening in the floating gardens in urban rivers, as well as what's happening in Xochimilco in Mexico City, and provide some more information about how those are similar and different. So if you haven't gotten a chance, it's free through October. Just want to bring that out. So some climate action stuff going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. The information about that is in the calendar. Cherie has already added that in, so if anybody wants to check it out, they can find it there. I was just looking out to see if the hours of the Chicago Architecture Museum for the Flyways exhibit. I don't know if anyone knows that. 10 to 5? Great. Thank you.
I saw the exhibit this morning, and it was sensational. Not only did they give you a very good perspective of the issues with flyways, but Jeannie Gang was in there, who's a lead architect here, and showed you some very inexpensive ways to protect flyways through emulsions and films and various things that tell the birds not to fly into the window. So it's really worth doing. It's not a huge exhibit. You can do it in about 45 minutes to an hour.
Excellent. Thanks.
Kathy?
I know they did with because I do bird walks by the McCormick Place, the black building, and they did put some kind of film or something on those windows, and it dramatically reduced bird collisions, which was really awesome. So, I mean, it can be done if people have, interest in doing it, but it made a big difference because they were really, the bird collisions there were incredible prior to that application.
Anyone else? Anyone else at home? I just had just an update from McHenry County. We are in the process of doing our comprehensive conservation planning with to 2040 with the vision of 2071, which is our 100 years. And we've been working, we actually just got completed with our statistically accurate survey that was done, and we did one right before COVID, and the results, again, not a surprise, but we did really well prior to COVID, and just obviously there's many variables, and of course we've had a proposition question, as has many of the other public agencies across the region since that time as well. And the numbers have just, again, from very favorable ratings and an interest of preserving and protecting are again climbing. So that's just great news, I think, and be able to compare that data and to look at that. So that to me is a collective story of what's happening on the ground and the importance of these places and the restoration work. And so to me, that's something that we all should cherish on and share in those successes and be able to pull that together. So thank you on that front. With that, before we adjourn, just want to do a reminder, since we are downtown, and if you have time, we are going to kind of take it over to Little Toasted here. Never been, but anybody been there before? No? You've been, okay, so give it an endorsement, thumbs up there. All right, so we're going to head over there if you wish to join us there for just a little while, and then we'll head out. But that is located at 300 South Riverside Plaza Building. Here, our next Executive Council meeting is on October 28th. That is a virtual meeting, and then we'll be together for Congress in November with a lot more to come. Thank you for making the time to come into Chicago today for this meeting. It's lovely for face-to-face. Thank you, CMAT, for being a wonderful host and gracious to give us this space, easy to access with transit for everyone. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Emily, do I have a second? Second by Laura. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We are adjourned virtually at home. You'll have to have a drink without us. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.